Welcome. Thank you for coming to this lunch and learn about green running. I have got the chat box open as well, so feel free to ask questions at any point, either out loud or in the chat. So about green running. Now let's think about it before kind of set some parameters first, as you would kind of expect me to do. There are a lot of sports out there in the world. According to Wikipedia, there are around 8,000 recognized sports, from F1 to archery, snowboarding to horse racing. All of those have an environmental impact. So some are more sustainable to others. I would hate to think what the carbon emissions of F1 are, but probably fairly high. So there are a lot out there, and I could also potentially be talking about gym goers. So as it's saying there, about 15% of the UK population, it says have a gym membership. That doesn't necessarily mean they all go, of course. And that's, travel, electricity, cleaning products, all that kind of stuff from a sustainable point of view. But I'm not covering all of that. I'm literally concentrating on running. So whether somebody's kind of a runner just goes out for fitness, or whether they run to race, I'm purely talking about running. So I'm going to kind of cover it in three sections. The first part is I'm going to talk about kind of some of the environmental impact, because on the face of it, you wouldn't necessarily think running would be massively impactful, but actually it certainly has its moments. Then I'm going to talk about, I suppose, the more positive side of it. So what are event organisers doing about it? So what are their responses to some of the issues about being, unsustainable in terms of racing events? And then, more importantly, what can we do as runners? So what can we do to be more sustainable? So let's look at some of the problem areas. And I'm going to start off with races first, because they're the ones that tend to have had research done on them of their impact. So 2018 London Marathon, 920,000 plastic bottles, single-use bottles, were used in that one marathon. Now, that's slightly different these days. There's still bottles out there, but they are supposed to be now made of recycled plastic, and they try and recycle as many of them as possible. But still, there's a lot of single-use plastic being used. From that one marathon, 40,000 medals, 40,000 T-shirts, some of which are chucked away, some of which are, passed on. But, that's a huge amount of resources, the resources to make those. Some people hang their medals up. Sometimes they're just chucked in a drawer, never seen again. So lots of plastic and things like that. Let's look at it a different way. New York City Marathon, 50,000 runners, 150 countries, 37% of those runners are from overseas. And that's primarily flights. So after beef production, flights and transport, probably one of the biggest carbon producers, out there. So 37% of the runners fly to get to that marathon. And the Paris Marathon, one running of the Paris Marathon is 26,500 tons of CO2. To put that in context, that's the entire lifetime CO2 production of carbon production of 34 people. Or if you fancy it, get in your car and drive around the Earth 2,600 times. That's one marathon. That's the impact of one marathon. Yeah, so some potentially scary figures from what you would, on the face of it, you think, well, it's just a load of people running around the city. Bringing it a little bit more local, if you're familiar with park runs, so the free 5K runs that are run throughout the country on a Saturday morning, roughly 773 events, 350,000 runners. There aren't any figures out there, but I would suspect at least half of those drive to that event. Yeah, so again, huge impact, even though on the face of it, you wouldn't necessarily think that. And if they then bring it back down to the individual, obviously, there's the carbon footprint. So travel in whatever form it is. There's synthetic materials. Most running gear is synthetic. Yeah, so nylons, lycras, all that kind of stuff. We've got the examples there, walking poles, GPS watches, batteries or rechargeable batteries for head torches, depending how severe you're going to go. So there's lots and lots of gear potentially. It's not just a pair of shorts, a T-shirt and a pair of trainers these days. There's more out there, and that has to be produced somewhere. There's water usage. The more you run, the more you wash. Well, Fingers crossed, hopefully, anyway. Otherwise, you certainly won't be running with other people. They'll all be running in the opposite direction. But, you know, lots of washing to go, as well as obviously hydration. There is litter, unfortunately. Sometimes there's litter dropped, but ultimately there's also litter produced that you, even if you're taking home to discard, if that's not recycled, it's a phrase that I came across ages ago. You can't throw something away because there is no away. Away doesn't exist. Away is somewhere on this earth. So you can't throw anything away because away doesn't exist. Of course, from a habitat point of view, really popular routes, you get erosion. So footpath erosion, potentially affecting kind of local biodiversity. Even for those runners, when you think, yes, but, you know, I eat bananas, they're biodegradable. Absolutely they are, but on really popular areas, you go up to the top of a popular mountain in the UK and you will see lots and lots of banana peels about. There is research happening at the moment that it is beginning to change the pH level of some areas of their little patches of soil. So even that is not great when it's done in volume. So there's some of the problems. Let's start looking at some of the solutions. So with event organisers, one of the things that many are now doing is something known as Trees Not Tees. So it's an organisation that works with a lot of racers, and when you sign up, you can choose for a tree to be planted instead of receiving a T-shirt. Okay, and a lot of racers are doing that now, are using that, have signed up to that as a scheme, I guess. Other ones are doing it. So Manchester Half doesn't do T-shirts at all now. It's just stopped offering it. It's not an option. Royal Parks Half is plastic free, and a lot of races now going plastic free. A lot of them expect to bring your own cup. So this is an example of a cup. I've got one here, look. It's all collapsible, so you can fold it up, stick it in a pocket when you're running, and then you just drink it. It does take a little bit of practice because you do tend to squeeze it and end up getting a face full of whatever you were supposed to be drinking. But yeah, so a lot of places going plastic free, you have to bring your own cup. And a couple of other ones. So Rathfinny Half Marathon has a shuttle bus to pick up people from local train station, which is great. 2022, 54 car journeys were saved. One of my favourites, not favourites what they do, not favourites because I've done it yet. Lake District Dunnerdale Fell Race. Cars with 1 to 2 people pay to park. If you've got 4 or more, you get free beer. And if you cycle or if you walk there, you get £5. What I do quite fancy doing is if I can work out, if you get 4 people onto a bike and turn up, do you get free beer and £5? Let's see, we need to work that one out. But anyway, and a lot of other races, the tape they're using to mark courses, biodegradable tape, obviously environmentally friendly loo roll, wooden signs. You know, when I first started doing trail races, you know, a lot of markers were, you know, plastic hazard tape. And yes, people would go around afterwards and pick it up, but that's still plastic. You know, that's beginning to change. There's lots more where it's little wired on reusable signs, little arrows, and then they go and collect them and obviously reuse them. So the events are doing a huge amount. But the white showing bits. But what's interesting from a lot of the figures is 95% of runner impact is from individual runners. It's not from events. So there's often a lot of pressure. So if you think back to that carbon reduction of Paris Marathon, there's a lot of pressure being put on events and event organisers. You know, get it sorted. You must be more sustainable. That's only 5% of the overall impact. Most of it comes down to the individual, the individual runner. So what can you do? Well, obviously you could just not run. You know, sit on your sofa, binge Netflix. Bob's your uncle, no problems. Even, you know, if you really want to go that far, watch some programs on running. Maybe you might get a little bit of fitness from that, you know. But, you know, if you do insist on running, kind of like me, then there are things you can do. So what I'm going to look at are the 4 pillars of an organisation known as the Green Runners, which any runner can sign up for. It's very exclusive because it's £2.50 per year. So obviously, you know, you might need to save up a bit for that, but £2.50 per year. And what you're basically doing is you're signing up and you're committing to doing your best towards 4 pillars. So how you move, how you kit up, how you eat, and how you speak out. So how you move, 90% of a carbon's footprint, of an event's carbon footprint is runner travel. So one of the big things that the Green Runners want you to be thinking about is really thinking and choosing carefully what races, if you do race, are you choosing to go and attend? It doesn't, they're not saying don't go to them, don't. So it's not saying if I wanted to go and do the Loch Ness Marathon, don't do it. But obviously where you can do it through public transport or sharing, or combine it with something else. There's nothing that a partner or family loves when they think they're going away for a lovely weekend and you just happen to have found a race at that point when you get there. Funny how those things work out, but so you can combine it with other things. So that's one of the things that they can look for. And if you do say you need to fly to an event, that you then try and do some carbon offset. So there are companies out there you can pay to have trees planted to offset, etc., etc. One of the big ones, obviously, for running is kit. So, first thing to question is, do you need it? How much running kit do you actually need? How much do you use? Now, obviously, there is an easy answer to that. So get involved with naked running. For me personally, there's a little bit too much flapping about, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. But thanks, Heather, that got the right reaction. So, I wouldn't recommend that. I would generally go for some form of kit. So one of the big bits is to really think about it. So to stick into the chat box, runners alone, not gym users, runners alone, how many running shoes would you say are thrown away each year in the UK? So this is single shoes, not pairs, if that helps. Stick a couple of numbers in the chat box. 6. This is across the UK, not per person. 2, so what we've got, 20,000, 25,000. Jez is going for 4. Well, that says a lot. 50,000, 1 million. Andrew's going up there. 80,000, got 2 million, 20 million. Hey, we're getting there, 1.7 million. Excellent, some really good ones. It is 33 million. 33 million shoes per year just from runners. Yeah, so, and that's roughly about 3 pairs per runner, because obviously some of the pros are getting through them every 6 weeks, etc. Yeah, not just mine, Jez. No. I just thought you were meaning yours for the amount you get through. Now it's thinking about, do you need it? And obviously look after it. So, wash them, look after it. Some companies out there are now offering resoling. So if it's the sole that you've worn through, you can get it resoled, a bit like a pair of shoes, which is great and can be particularly helpful when you've just found that perfect pair that fits you. The worst thing is you find a perfect pair that fits you and then the little sods stop producing it and you can't get another pair. But there you go. So it's looking after what it is. There are also other sites you can do. So Pre-Loved Sports, Play It Again Sport, Rerun, obviously Vinted, even eBay. So you can get secondhand kit. If you used a bit and actually just doesn't work for you to sell it on. So again, it's that kind of reuse part of it, if you do need to get rid of it. There's a company called Too Many T-Shirts. I have my example here. So it's a company that will take loads of your race T-shirts and make a blanket out of it. So they put a little fleecy back on it, so you can wear it toga-like if you feel the need. I wouldn't recommend running in it; it's a bit toasty. But Too Many T-Shirts, so it's a great way if you do have all of those, rather than chucking them out, get something made out of it. And of course, Trees Not Tees. It's choosing that option if it's an option. If you're not somebody if you are running out of running tops, then maybe don't go for the T-shirt. But if not, go for the Trees Not Tees. And then how you eat. Now, several bits around this. Obviously, there's kind of race and running nutrition. Those runners out there will be very familiar with gels, the joys that is. If you're not, this is an example of a gel. So they're normally a little packet about that big, generally quite sweet, fairly horrific, and are single use, unfortunately. So you rip off that little top and get it down your neck. For me, one, I hate the things anyway, but also because it's single-use plastic, again, lots and lots of stuff that can't be recycled. So it's for green runners, it's about looking for alternatives to that. And for me, Rice Krispie Treats is the way forward. So homemade Rice Krispie Treats, it's good carbs, it's good source of sugar and energy. They're squashable, works really well and easily digestible if you're eating on the run as well. So that's my recommendation anyway, instead of those horrible gels. One of the things that the green runners are also looking at is just your daily diet. This isn't just about you eating when you run. So it's about thinking, okay, so where are you getting your food from? Are you looking at sustainable products yourself? You know, there are refill stores out there. Do you make use of those where you can? So this is one I can recommend up in Tiptree if you are Essex based. So we use the refill store, which is great because you can take your own containers and just refill with dry goods, washing liquid, all that kind of stuff. There's also the thing about reducing meat. So that doesn't mean that you have to go vegan. It's just about reducing the amount of meat you eat per week if you do. If that's something that you might be quite interested in doing and you are a meal box fan, I can heartily recommend Grubby, which is a vegan meal box company. They are B Corp accredited. So if that's your thing as well, then great. It's another B Corp. And really good. You can get, I think it's up to 4 meals a week. And it's obviously all boxed up, recyclable, compostable, all that sort of malarkey. And if you are interested, let me know, because I can probably get us a bit of startup referral percentage off as well. And of course, good old food miles. So thinking about where the food is coming from. Again, apologies for being a bit Essex focused. The one that I use is called Riverford, which is Suffolk based. So it's kind of mainly Suffolk grown fruit and veg as a veg box. They do get some of it from abroad, but then that's when you get into that really difficult sustainability balance that environmentally, for an example, environmentally, it may be better to ship tomatoes from Spain where they're grown naturally than it is to have UK tomatoes that are grown in greenhouses that need lots of energy to keep it warm. So there's always that give and take on depending which direction you're wanting to go. But Riverford's a good one, and there will always be other ones local to you as well. And obviously it's how you speak out. So green runners are obviously trying to get other green runners to talk about it, a bit like doing this. So, you know, speaking about it, not being evangelist about it, but speaking about it. Challenging events. So if you are running, you go to an event that's not particularly sustainable, it's, you know, calling them out on it. The example here with goodie bags, certainly back in the day, you always used to get a goodie bag as a runner. So you finished a race and you get usually a plastic carrier bag with a plastic bottle of water, Mars bar, and some other bits of tat in there. I haven't been to a race that does a goodie bag for a long time now. So again, there's lots of learning come out from that. And this bit is around also supporting brands that are sustainable. So, for example, ones that these are not necessarily running brands, but they are outdoor. So Patagonia is a really good one. They give, I think it's 1% of their sales to environmental groups, and they're constantly auditing their processes. Cotopaxi, they're reported to be climate neutral, and a lot of most of their gear is made from the offcuts from other companies. So they take the offcuts and create stuff out of it. There's Dryad, that's a Welsh company. So they use recycled fabrics, they manufacture low environmental social impact, and all their packaging is compostable. So always a good one. And also Vivo Barefoot, or Vivo, I never do know how to say that. So if you're familiar with Vivo, so Barefoot, they're the ones that do the shoes with the toes actually put in them. So they're pretty good. They've been working on it a lot. So their Primus Bio range, I think it is made from plant-based polymer. They've got some of their brand that's repurposed algae and recycled plastic, and they push it that there's 17 bottles in every pair of one of their ones. And kind of even better, they will also take your old Vivo Barefoot shoes, revive them, and then resell them on their Revivo site. So they're not only trying to be environmental in the way they make stuff, they're also trying to then keep repurposing and keep reusing it so it doesn't end up in landfill or whatever else. So that's kind of the content stuff chucked at you. So it's about what event organizers are doing it, but a lot of it comes down to the individuals. So I do have some kind of final figures just to show you of what some of the impact could be. And before we just get into it, some questions, there's kind of one more thing, is you could become a plogger. Being very careful how I pronounce that, so it's not misinterpreted. Plogger, the word plogger comes from Sweden, and it's about basically, whilst you're out running, is litter picking. Because not only are you helping the environment, but you're also developing your core, your flexibility because you're bending down. As you can see from the race number, there is even an international plogging championship, of all things. So you not only race, you also get points for how much rubbish you get, but you have by the end of the race. Very interesting. But you know, I do this not kind of as a registered plogger or anything, but every run I go out for, my goal is to bring back at least 3 pieces of litter. So it may not be much, but it's making a difference each time. Yeah, so you could become a plogger. So before I get on to just kind of some final figures, any questions? You can either ask out loud or stick them in the chat. Make sure it's a good one, otherwise I will run at you. Do racers talk about this at the events? Absolutely. They talk a lot about it, obviously, when you're looking on their websites for signing up. Quite a few of them now will bring it up in their kind of pre-race chat. So they always do, you know, before everybody sets off, just before the start, you'll end up being brought into either a marquee or outside on the tannoy, and they'll give you the lay of the land, the safety briefing, that kind of stuff. They will often talk about bits and pieces like that, particularly if there's going to be recycling bins around the route, and they'll tell you where they are, what kind of things you can put in them, that kind of stuff. And one of the recent ones that I did, which was the Snowdon 24, one of the things they said in their safety briefing that there's marshals all kind of, obviously, as you would expect, it's a mountain all up the trail. And if any runner is seen dropping litter, it's immediately disqualification. They'd literally stop your race and make you leave the race. So again, there's a lot of the events doing more now. Could GC sponsor some recycling big race? Don't see why not. Don't see why not at all. There's certainly some of the local ones. Obviously, there's the local half marathons and things. We've got nuclear races, the obstacle racing, around Brentwood Way. So yeah, there's plenty of local races, certainly, you know, quite large ones. So yeah, good question. 6 minutes left. Any other questions?
Hi, Neil.
Obviously, everybody has to.
Something, but be far easier for me to say it before I type it out. Trainers, they often have like a limited mileage, don't they, that you have to use them. And when I was doing a lot more running than there was now, I got through quite a lot of pairs, but they're still quite decent. And I just kept them for sort of walking, what have you. But is there anyone that kind of how they can still be reused? We're not necessarily in a charity shop, but is there anyone that kind of focuses on repurposing old trainers?
I think Rerun used to. I don't know if they still do, because I think they've changed the way they're doing stuff now. But Pre-Loved, I think, will do trainers to an extent where you can send it in and it'll be resold. I cannot recall the name. There is a charity that will take old trainers and ship them over to, you know, Africa and that, so that again they can continue to be used as kind of general footwear. So I'll try and dig that out, and I'll kind of let you know. But there is one out there. I mean, you know, it's a shame that, you know, the Nikes and Adidas of this world won't kind of do a bit more in terms of reusing things like that. So, and you know, a lot of the shelf life of a lot of trainers is actually nonsense, because a lot of it will depend on how heavy a runner you are, as in whether you heel strike, how quickly you wear stuff out. You know, I've got off-road trainers that I've worn all the grip off, but I can still use them as road trainers, so they're still fine for that. You know, it's not believing. You know, there are some people who, oh, you know, you've got to change them after 600 miles, and they do that religiously, whether they need it or not, which is a bit of a nonsense, really.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a good point.
I normally change mine when my knees start to hurt. That's normally the giveaway that they're starting.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, if it's giving you enough padding, enough support in whatever way you need, and you're not getting injuries, then go for it. Keep using it. Absolutely.
One final comment, I guess, with all of this, you know, it's obviously the focus has been on running, but all, you know, vast majority could be taken across so many other sports as well, can't they? That people are getting involved in.
Oh, massively. Yeah, massively. Thank you, Amanda. Just shared a website, sportshoes.com. OG on again. Sorry, jog on again, because the J's are up. Jog on again. So yeah, great. Thank you for that. Brilliant. So it's coming up for time. Let me just give you a couple of kind of final thoughts. So there are, what are you not going on? There we go. 6 million UK runners, apparently. Some very sporadic, some very serious. If every one of those runners didn't buy, one, or should I say, bought one less pair of trainers a year, then that's 12 million shoes less for landfill. If each of those runners, particularly those that raced, did one less 100-mile round-trip journey, so race 50 miles away, 50 miles back, if each one did that, then that's what, 214,000 tons of carbon reduction, just from that one race. And if people did reduce meat consumption by 2 days a week, then that's roughly what, 146,000 tons of carbon. So again, although there's often a lot of pressure on events and event organisers, as is often the case, it's down to the individual. It's the individual's ability to make a change and make a difference. So thanks very much. Thanks for coming along. It's probably one of the few times I can very politely and correctly say jog on, because it will be the correct thing to say. So thanks very much. If there are any questions, I'll loiter for a bit. Feel free to ask or contact me directly. That's not a problem at all. Go and have a run through the rest of your day.